You think the devil invented cruelty. You think he sits on some throne of bones, laughing at the chaos below, proud of what he's done. No. The devil is a student, always has been. And his greatest lesson didn't come from hell. It came from watching what happens when a good man decides he's had enough. When a man who built his life on patience, on kindness, on turning the other cheek, finally stops turning. That's when the devil pulls out his notebook. That's when he starts taking notes. You've seen it. Maybe you've even felt it. That shift, that moment when someone who never raised their voice suddenly goes quiet. Not the quiet of peace, the quiet of calculation, the quiet before a storm that doesn't announce itself with thunder, but with the complete and total erasure of everything in its path. Good men don't go to war the way angry men do. Angry men are loud, predictable. They swing wild, burn fast, leave ashes you can sweep up. But a good man who goes to war doesn't swing. He dismantles, piece by piece, name by name, with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a sniper who's been lying in the grass for 3 days, waiting for one perfect shot. The world tells you to be good, be kind, be the bigger person, and you believed it. You swallowed it whole. You turned the other cheek so many times your neck started to ache. You forgave people who didn't deserve it. You gave chances to those who spat in your face. You built bridges to people who were already planning to burn them. And you thought that made you strong. You thought that made you noble. But deep down, in that place you don't talk about, you knew the truth. You weren't being strong. You were being weak. You were afraid of what you'd become if you stopped holding back. Because you know what's inside you. You've always known. That shadow that walks beside you. That voice that whispers when someone crosses the line. That cold feeling in your chest when you imagine what you could do if you just let go. You've kept it chained, fed it scraps of restraint, told it to sit, to wait, to behave, and it obeyed. Not because it's weak, but because you commanded it. But chains rust. Patience has limits, and there comes a moment when that shadow stops asking for permission. History doesn't remember the good men who stayed good. It remembers the good men who became something else. Caesar was a politician before he crossed the Rubicon. Lincoln was a lawyer before he waged the bloodiest war his country had ever seen. Washington was a farmer before he became a ghost that haunted the British Empire. These weren't evil men. They were good men until they weren't. Until something inside them said enough. Until the world pushed them 1 inch too far, and they pushed back with the force of 1,000 buried grievances. You want to know what makes a good man dangerous? It's not anger. Anger is cheap. Anyone can be angry. It's not hatred. Hatred makes you sloppy. It's the absence of emotion. It's the moment when he stops feeling and starts thinking. When he stops reacting and starts planning. When he looks at the chessboard and realizes he's been playing defense his whole life, and the people across from him have been playing for blood. That's when he stops being a player and becomes the game itself. The devil doesn't fear the man who was born in darkness. That man is predictable. He acts out of nature, out of instinct. But the man who was born in light and chose to walk into darkness, that man is different. He knows both worlds. He's felt the warmth of goodness and the weight of restraint. He's built a moral code brick by brick, and he knows exactly which bricks to remove to make the whole thing collapse. He doesn't need to learn how to be ruthless. He just needs to stop pretending he isn't. People mistake kindness for weakness. They see a man who doesn't fight back, and they think he can't. They see a man who forgives, and they think he's soft. They push, they test, they take. And the good man lets them. Not because he's afraid, not because he's incapable, but because he's trying. He's trying to believe in something better, in second chances, in redemption, in the idea that people can change. But people don't change, not really. They just get better at hiding who they've always been. And when the good man finally sees that, when he finally accepts that the world isn't fair and people aren't good, and that his kindness has been weaponized against him, something inside him clicks. It's not a snap. It's not a breakdown. It's a cold, calculated click, like a gun being cocked, like a door being locked from the inside. And suddenly, every memory comes flooding back. Every disrespect, every betrayal, every time he bit his tongue, every time he smiled through the pain, every name, every face, every moment he chose peace when he should have chosen war, and he doesn't forget. Good men never forget. They just choose not to remember until remembering becomes useful. You think the devil invented torture? He didn't. He learned it from the good man who finally snapped. Because a good man doesn't just hurt you. He destroys you in ways you didn't know were possible. He doesn't just take your life. He takes your legacy, your reputation, your sense of safety. He doesn't just beat you. He makes you regret every moment that led you to cross him. He makes you wish you'd never even learned his name. And he does it all without raising his voice, without losing his composure, because he's not doing this out of emotion. He's doing this out of principle, out of necessity, out of the cold realization that some people only understand one language, and he's finally decided to speak it fluently. The world fears the monster, but the world should fear the man who kept the monster chained, because the monster acts on instinct. It kills because it's hungry. But the man who's been holding back, he acts with purpose, with intent, with a clarity that only comes from years of restraint. He's had time to think, time to plan, time to map out every scenario, every consequence, every outcome. And when he finally moves, it's not chaotic, it's surgical. There's a reason warriors pray before battle, not because they need God's permission, but because they need to remind themselves of their humanity before they do something that will make them question it. Good men know this. They know that once they cross that line, once they let the leash slip, there's no going back. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel what you've felt. You can't unknow what you're capable of, and that's the burden. That's the weight they carry. Not the act itself, but the knowledge that they were always capable of it. You've been there. Maybe not in war, maybe not in blood, but in your mind. In that dark place where you've imagined what you'd do if you stopped caring, if you stopped following the rules, if you stopped being the person everyone expects you to be. You've thought about it, late at night, when you're alone, when the world is quiet and your thoughts are loud. You've seen yourself doing things you'd never admit out loud, and it scared you. Not because you're a monster, but because you realized how easy it would be to become one. The truth is, every good man is one bad day away from becoming the villain in someone else's story, one betrayal away from burning every bridge he ever built, one lie away from deciding that honesty was never rewarded anyway, one loss away from realizing that everything he protected was never really his. And when that day comes, when that moment arrives, the devil doesn't laugh. He watches, he studies, he learns, because even he knows that there's a difference between someone who's always been evil and someone who chose it. One is a creature of habit, the other is a force of nature. So, what happens when a good man goes to war? He doesn't just fight, he wins. Not because he's stronger, not because he's faster, but because he's been preparing his entire life without even knowing it. Every time he held back was practice. Every time he chose peace was reconnaissance. Every time he forgave was intelligence gathering. He's been cataloging weaknesses, mapping vulnerabilities, understanding patterns. And when he finally strikes, it's not random, it's personal, it's precise, it's devastating. The devil took notes because he knows something most people don't. Evil is easy. Anyone can choose it, but righteousness turning into wrath, that's rare. That's powerful. That's the kind of energy that doesn't just change outcomes. It rewrites reality. You want to know why the world pushes good men to the edge. It's not random. It's not bad luck. It's by design. The world needs good men to stay good because good men are predictable. They follow rules. They respect boundaries. They operate within systems that were built to contain them. A good man is safe, manageable, controlled, but a good man who's decided the rules no longer apply. That's chaos the system can't handle. That's a variable it never accounted for. Because the system was never built to fight. Men who understand it from the inside, think about it. Who's more dangerous? The criminal who's always been a criminal, or the cop who decides to become one? The thief who's been stealing since childhood, or the banker who knows exactly where the money is and how to make it disappear. The soldier who's always been violent, or the medic who knows precisely where to cut to make it hurt the most. Knowledge without restraint is terrifying, and good men have spent years accumulating knowledge about systems, about people, about how the world actually works beneath the surface. They've been paying attention while everyone else assumed they were just being nice. Every time you bit your tongue, you learned patience. Every time you walked away, you learned discipline. Every time you forgave, you learned how to read people's patterns, how to predict their next move, how to see through their lies. You thought you were being weak, but you were actually being trained by life itself to become something the world isn't prepared for. A good man with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The world will tell you that revenge is wrong, that violence doesn't solve anything, that you should move on, forgive and forget. Let karma handle it. And you know why they tell you that? Because they're afraid. The people in power, the ones who benefit from your goodness, they're terrified of what happens when you stop playing their game. They need you docile. They need you forgiving. They need you to keep turning the other cheek, because the moment you stop, the moment you decide to hit back, their entire structure collapses. Good men are the pillars holding up a society that doesn't deserve them. And when those pillars decide to walk away, everything falls. Here's what they don't tell you about darkness. It's not the opposite of light. It's the absence of it. And when you've lived in the light your whole life, when you've been the source of it for others, you know exactly how to extinguish it. You know where the switches are. You know which candles to blow out first. You know how to make a room go dark in a way that leaves people stumbling, afraid, completely disoriented. Because you built the light, you maintained it, and now you're the only one who knows how to take it away. The psychology of a good man at war is different from anything else in human nature. He's not fighting for territory. He's not fighting for resources. He's fighting for balance, for justice in a world that's told him justice doesn't exist, for accountability in a system designed to protect the guilty. He's not trying to win. He's trying to correct, to restore equilibrium, to make the universe make sense again. And that makes him relentless in a way that terrifies people, because you can negotiate with greed. You can reason with anger, but you can't bargain with someone who's fighting for a principle, someone who's decided that the scales must balance, even if he has to put his own soul on the other side to make them level. You've felt it, that shift in your chest when you finally stopped caring about being understood, when you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped defending your actions to people who were never going to listen anyway. That moment when you realized that your reputation, your image, your need to be seen as good, all of it was just weight. chains you'd wrapped around yourself. And the second you decided you didn't care anymore, the second you let go of needing to be liked, something inside you became weightless, dangerous, free. The devil studies this transformation because it's alchemical. It's the transmutation of gold into something harder than diamond. You can break gold. It's soft, malleable, beautiful but weak. But when you put gold through enough pressure, enough heat, enough pain, it becomes something else entirely. Something that doesn't bend, doesn't break, doesn't forgive. And that's what a good man becomes when he goes to war. Not a monster, not a villain, but something the world has no category for. Something that operates outside the binary of good and evil. Because he's transcended both. This is where most people get it wrong. They think a good man going to war becomes evil. He doesn't. He becomes necessary. There's a difference. Evil enjoys the pain it causes. A good man at war doesn't enjoy it. He simply accepts it as the price of restoration, as the cost of making things right. He doesn't smile when his enemies fall. He doesn't celebrate their destruction. He just marks them off the list and moves to the next name. Efficient, clinical, complete. You know what's interesting about good men? They give warnings. They always give warnings, not threats. Warnings. There's a difference. A threat is about ego, about posturing, about trying to scare someone into submission. But a warning is a courtesy. It's a good man giving you one last chance to walk away, to apologize, to make it right. And when people ignore those warnings, when they mistake that final courtesy for weakness, they seal their own fate, because the good man tried. He gave you an exit, and you chose to stay on the battlefield. The shift happens in silence. You won't hear it coming. There's no declaration of war, no announcement, no dramatic moment where he tells you what he's about to do. He just becomes different, quieter, more focused. He stops engaging in arguments, stops defending himself, stops trying to make you understand, and that silence should terrify you. Because silence from a good man doesn't mean he's given up. It means he's made up his mind. It means he's moved from the planning phase to the execution phase. It means you're no longer a person to him. You're a problem, and problems get solved. People always ask how to spot a dangerous man. They look for tattoos, scars, aggressive behavior. But the most dangerous man in any room is the one who's completely calm. The one who doesn't need to prove anything. The one who's been underestimated his entire life and has learned to weaponize that underestimation. Good men are masters of this. They've spent years being overlooked, dismissed, taken for granted. And they've learned that invisibility is power. That being underestimated is an advantage. That while everyone's watching the loud, aggressive guy, the quiet one is positioning his pieces on the board. The devil took notes on strategy, on patience, on the long game, because evil is impulsive. It wants immediate gratification. immediate destruction. But a good man at war plays the long game. He knows that real victory isn't about the immediate strike. It's about the setup, the foundation, the slow, methodical dismantling of everything his enemy built. He doesn't just want to win. He wants to win so completely that there's no possibility of a rematch. No chance of resurrection, no stone left that could be used to rebuild. You've been building this capability your entire life without realizing it. Every time someone hurt you and you didn't retaliate, you were building pain tolerance. Every time you were betrayed and chose to trust again, you were studying human nature. Every time you gave someone a second chance, you were learning exactly how they'd waste it. You weren't being naive, you were gathering data. And now you have years of data, patterns, behaviors, weaknesses. You know exactly who people are when they think no one's watching. You know what they value, what they fear, what they'd sacrifice, and that knowledge is a weapon sharper than any blade. The world will call you bitter, jaded, changed. They'll say you're not the person you used to be. And they're right. You're not, because the person you used to be got taken advantage of, got lied to, got betrayed, and you learned, you evolved, you adapted. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. That's survival. That's the natural consequence of touching fire and learning not to do it again. They want you to stay the same because your predictability served them. Your goodness benefited them, but their comfort is no longer your concern. Here's the dark truth they don't want you to know. The world needs villains. It needs people to blame, people to point at and say that's where the evil comes from. But the real threat, the real danger, isn't the villain who's always been bad. It's the hero who's realized the game is rigged, who's seen behind the curtain, who knows that the rules only apply to some people, and he's tired of being one of them. That's the plot twist the world can't handle. The good guy deciding he's done being good in a world that punishes goodness and rewards cruelty. So you use it, this darkness, this knowledge, this transformation, not randomly, not recklessly, but strategically. You become the thing they created, the monster they manufactured through their lies, their betrayals, their assumption that you'd always be there to absorb their damage. And when they see what they've created, when they finally understand what happens, when a good man stops being good, it's too late. Because you're not just fighting them. You're fighting the version of yourself that kept giving them chances. And that's a war you're guaranteed to win. Now we get to the part they don't teach you. The execution. Not the theory, not the philosophy. The actual application of this darkness you've been carrying. Because understanding that a good man at war is dangerous means nothing if you don't know how to channel it, how to use it, how to become the force that makes the devil himself take notes. This isn't about rage. This isn't about blind destruction. This is about precision. about becoming a scalpel in a world full of hammers. First thing you need to understand is that silence is your greatest weapon. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of fear, the silence of power. When people attack you, when they provoke you, when they try to bait you into reacting, you say nothing. You don't defend. You don't explain. You don't justify. You just watch. You observe. You let them talk themselves into a corner while you're mapping out every word, every lie, every contradiction. They think your silence means you're hurt, that you're weak, that they've won. Let them think that, because while they're celebrating their perceived victory, you're studying the blueprint of their destruction. Every good man who's gone to war knows this. The battle isn't won in the moment of conflict. It's won in the days, weeks, months before, in the preparation, in the intelligence gathering, in the careful, methodical understanding of your opponent's patterns. You don't strike when you're angry. You strike when you're ready, when every piece is in position, when the outcome is inevitable. Anger makes you sloppy. Calculation makes you unstoppable. You want to know how to dismantle someone. You don't attack their strengths. You don't go head to head with what they're good at. You find what they love, what they're proud of, what they've built their identity around, and you take it apart piece by piece. Not quickly, not dramatically, slowly. So slowly, they don't even realize it's happening until it's already gone. A good man at war doesn't need to destroy his enemy. He just needs to remove the foundation and let gravity do the rest. And here's where the psychology gets dark. You use their own weapons against them. Every tactic they used on you, every manipulation, every lie, every exploitation of your goodness, you reverse it. But you do it better, because you learned from a place of pain. You learned from being on the receiving end. You know exactly how it feels, exactly how it works, exactly where it hurts the most. And when you deploy those same tactics with the precision of someone who studied them intimately, the damage is catastrophic. Because they never expected you to learn their language. They thought you were above it. They were wrong. But here's the critical part. You don't become them. That's the line. That's the difference between a good man at war and just another monster. You use the darkness, but you don't let it consume you. You don't start hurting innocent people. You don't become indiscriminate. Your targets are specific. Your actions are justified. You operate with a code even in the chaos. Because the moment you lose that, the moment you start causing pain for the sake of pain, you've lost. You've become exactly what they said you were. And a good man, even at war, never gives his enemies the satisfaction of being right about him. This is about restoration, about balance, about making sure that actions have consequences in a world that's forgotten what consequences look like. You're not the villain. You're the reckoning. You're what happens when the universe finally corrects itself, when the scales that have been tilted for so long finally level out. And sometimes leveling out looks violent. Sometimes justice looks like revenge. Sometimes doing the right thing requires doing terrible things. And you've made peace with that. You move in shadows now. Not because you're hiding, but because shadows are where the real work gets done. While everyone's distracted by the noise, by the spectacle, by the obvious, you're in the background rearranging reality, closing doors, opening others, planting seeds that will grow into consequences they never saw coming. You've learned that the most effective warfare isn't loud. It's silent. It's the kind where your enemy doesn't even know they're losing until they've already lost everything. And you document everything, every conversation, every interaction, every promise they made and broke, every lie they told, every time they showed you exactly who they are. You keep records, not because you're petty, but because you're strategic. Because when the time comes, when you finally make your move, you have evidence, you have proof, you have an airtight case that leaves no room for doubt, no space for them to play victim, no opportunity for them to rewrite history. You control the narrative because you've been writing it in real time while they thought you weren't paying attention. The execution phase is about timing. You don't strike when you're ready. You strike when they're not, when they're comfortable, when they think they've gotten away with it, when they've moved on and forgotten about you. That's when you remind them. That's when everything they built on the foundation of your suffering comes crashing down. And the beautiful part, they'll never see it coming, because good men are patient. They don't need immediate gratification. They can wait years if necessary, because they know that revenge is a dish best served when your enemy has completely forgotten they're on the menu. But here's what separates you from everyone else. When it's done, when the war is over, when your enemies are scattered and the balance is restored, you don't gloat. You don't celebrate. You don't seek recognition. You just walk away, back into the light if you can find it, back into silence if you can't, because this was never about ego. This was about necessity, about doing what needed to be done because no one else would, about being the kind of man who can walk through hell and come out the other side still knowing who he is. The devil took notes because he recognized something in you he'll never have. The ability to choose. He's bound by his nature, locked into his role. But you chose this. You were given every opportunity to stay good, to stay safe, to stay in the light. And you chose to descend anyway. Not because you're evil, but because sometimes the only way to defeat darkness is to become fluent in its language, to understand it so completely that you can dismantle it from the inside. And when it's over, you'll carry scars no one can see. You'll have knowledge you can't unknow. You'll have done things you can't undo, but you'll also have something most people never find. Proof that you're capable of anything. That when pushed to the absolute edge, when stripped of everything, when forced to become something you never wanted to be, you didn't break. You transformed. You became exactly what the situation required, and there's a strange kind of peace in that. Knowing that whatever comes next, whatever challenges, whatever darkness, you've already been there. You've already survived worse. You've already become the thing that makes the devil himself take notes. So what now? You have a choice. You can go back to pretending. You can put the mask back on. You can try to be the person you were before. But we both know that person is dead. Killed by the very people who claimed to care about him. Or you can accept what you've become. Not a monster. Not a villain. But something the world doesn't have a name for. A good man who went to war and came back knowing exactly what he's capable of. And that knowledge, that darkness, that edge, it's yours now, forever. Use it wisely. Use it sparingly. But never forget you have it. Because the world is full of people who will test you. Who will push you, who will mistake your kindness for weakness. And when they do, when they cross that line, when they make the mistake of thinking you're still that good man who turns the other cheek, you'll have a decision to make, and this time you'll make it with full knowledge of what you're capable of. This time, there's no innocence to hide behind, no ignorance to claim, just choice, pure, informed, deliberate choice. The devil took notes when a good man went to war, because he knew he was witnessing something rare, something powerful, something that doesn't happen often, but changes everything when it does. He watched you transform. He studied your methods. He cataloged your tactics. And somewhere in the depths of whatever hell he occupies, he probably smiled, not because you became evil, but because you proved that the most dangerous force in the universe isn't hatred or malice or cruelty. It's love that's been betrayed, kindness that's been exploited, goodness that's been pushed too far. That's the energy that reshapes worlds. That's the force that even darkness respects. You're not the same person who started reading this. Something shifted. Something clicked. Maybe it was recognition. Maybe it was permission. Maybe it was just the acknowledgement of what you've always known, but were too afraid to admit. You have a monster inside you. We all do. The difference is you've learned how to control it, how to aim it, how to use it without letting it use you. And that makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Join the few who understand, the ones who've walked this path, the ones who know what it costs to maintain goodness in a world that punishes it, the ones who've made the hard choice to step into darkness, not because they wanted to, but because someone had to. We don't wear capes. We don't seek recognition. We just exist in the spaces between light and shadow, doing what needs to be done. becoming what the situation requires, and carrying the weight of what that means. The devil is still taking notes, still watching, still learning, because every time a good man goes to war, he teaches darkness something new about itself, about its limits, about its weaknesses, about how even the shadows bow to someone who's mastered both light and dark. You are that lesson. You are that warning. You are proof that goodness isn't weakness, and that the most terrifying force in existence is a good man who's decided he's done being good in a world that doesn't deserve it. Now close this. Go be that force. And remember, the devil might take notes, but you write the ending. You thought it was over. You thought 3 parts was enough to understand what happens when a good man goes to war. But there's a 4th chapter they never tell you about. The part that comes after the war. After the smoke clears, after the enemies have fallen, after you've done everything you said you'd do. The part where you have to live with what you've become. And this is where most men fail. Not in the battle, but in the aftermath. Because here's what nobody warns you about. When you unleash that darkness, when you become the thing that makes the devil take notes, when you cross lines you swore you'd never cross, you don't just go back to normal. There is no normal anymore. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel what power feels like. You can't unknow what you're truly capable of when the leash comes off, and that knowledge changes you at a cellular level. You walk different. You talk different. You see people different. Because now you know what they're capable of too. You see the monster in everyone. Because you've met yours face to face and shook its hand. The world will expect you to go back. To return to being that good man. To flip the switch and pretend like nothing happened. To smile again. To forgive again. To be that pillar of morality they could lean on. And you'll try. God knows you'll try. You'll put on the mask. You'll say the right things. You'll go through the motions. But inside, something fundamental has shifted. You've tasted blood and realized it doesn't taste as bad as they said it would. You've felt the rush of absolute power and understood why people chase it. You've seen the look in someone's eyes when they realize they underestimated you, and it felt better than any applause ever did. This is the test, the real one, not whether you can become dangerous. Any fool can become dangerous. The real test is whether you can become dangerous and not let it define you. Whether you can carry that darkness without letting it carry you. Whether you can know what you're capable of and choose restraint anyway. Not because you're afraid, not because you're weak, but because you understand that true power isn't in the destruction. It's in the choice not to destroy when you easily could. You'll be tempted. Every single day, someone will disrespect you. Someone will test you. Someone will assume that because you're quiet now, because you're calm, because you're not broadcasting your capabilities, that you're back to being that soft target, and everything in you will scream to remind them, to show them, to make an example out of them so brutal that no one ever forgets what happens when they cross you. And that's the moment. That's the crossroads. Do you become the monster full time? Or do you prove that you're something more rare, more valuable, more terrifying? A man who can choose. The devil studies this part most carefully, because this is where he loses his grip. This is where the good man either falls completely into darkness and becomes just another servant of chaos, or he transcends both light and dark and becomes something the devil has no power over. A man who's walked through hell, learned its secrets, mastered its tools, and then walked back out choosing to be good anyway. Not knave goodness, not innocent goodness, but informed goodness, dangerous goodness, goodness backed by the full knowledge of what ungoodness looks like, and the conscious choice to reject it. You're standing at that crossroads right now. You've learned the lessons. You've gained the power. You've become capable of things that would make your younger self weep. And now you have to decide who you are with all that knowledge. Are you the weapon, or are you the hand that controls the weapon? Are you the darkness, or are you the man who learned to walk through darkness without becoming it? Here's what they don't tell you about power. It's lonely. The more capable you become, the fewer people can relate to you. The more you understand about human nature, the harder it is to trust anyone. The more battles you win, the more people fear you instead of love you. And you'll feel that isolation like a physical weight. You'll sit in rooms full of people and feel completely alone, because no one there has been where you've been. No one's done what you've done. No one's carrying what you're carrying. And part of you will want to just let go, to stop restraining, to become the monster fully, because at least monsters don't feel lonely. They don't question. They don't doubt. They just are. But that's the trap. That's the final test. Can you carry this weight alone? Can you be the man who's capable of terrible things and choose not to do them, even when no one would blame you, even when you'd be justified, even when the world itself seems to be begging you to unleash what you're holding back? That's the ultimate power, not the ability to destroy, but the ability to not destroy when destruction would be so easy, so satisfying, so perfectly justified. You'll have nightmares, not about what was done to you, but about what you did, about the look in their eyes, about the precision of your strikes, about how good it felt in the moment, how right it felt, how natural it felt. And you'll wake up wondering if you're still the hero of your own story, or if somewhere along the way you became something else. And the answer is both. You're both. You're the hero who did what needed to be done, and the villain who enjoyed doing it more than you should have. And learning to live with that duality, that's the real journey. The world will judge you. Some will call you a hero. Some will call you a monster. Most won't know enough to call you anything because you've learned to move in silence, and their opinions don't matter anyway because they weren't there. They didn't walk your path. They didn't carry your weight. They didn't make your choices. So their judgment is irrelevant. The only judgment that matters is your own. Can you look in the mirror and accept what looks back? Not love it, not hate it, just accept it. Accept that you're a good man who's done dark things. Accept that you're capable of both salvation and destruction. Accept that you're neither hero nor villain, but something more complex, more human, more real than either label could ever capture. You know what the devil fears most? Not the man who resists temptation because he's never been tempted, but the man who's been tempted, who's tasted it, who's indulged it, and then chose to walk away anyway. That man can't be corrupted because he's already seen what corruption looks like from the inside. He can't be tempted because he knows exactly what he'd be trading. He can't be manipulated because he's learned every trick by using them himself. That man is untouchable, not because he's pure, but because he's survived impurity and came out the other side with his core intact. So you make a new code, not the naive code of your youth, not the simple black and white morality you had before the world taught you about gray, but a code forged in fire, tested in blood, proven in war. A code that says you will be good, but you will not be soft. You will be kind, but you will not be taken advantage of. You will give chances, but not infinite ones. You will turn the other cheek once, maybe twice, but the third time you'll remove the hand that's striking you. Your new code is simple. You lead with peace, but you're always prepared for war. And when war comes, you don't hesitate. You don't hold back. You don't pull punches. You end it so completely that it never needs to happen again. This is who you are now, not the man you were, not the monster you could be, but something in between, something more dangerous than either, because you can switch between them at will. You can be the gentle soul who helps old ladies cross the street, and the nightmare who haunts someone's sleep, and people will never know which one they're getting until it's too late. That uncertainty, that unpredictability, that's your armor now. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them never quite be sure if you're the lamb or the lion, because the truth is you're both, and you've learned to use each one strategically. You'll lose people, friends who can't handle who you've become, family who wants the old you back, partners who are scared of what they see in your eyes sometimes. Let them go, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with understanding. They're not wrong to leave. You have changed. You are different. You do carry something dark inside you now. And not everyone is equipped to stand next to someone who's been to war. That's okay. You're not for everyone anymore. You're for the few who understand, the few who've walked similar paths, the few who know what it costs to maintain goodness in a world designed to destroy it. And maybe, if you're lucky, you'll find others like you, other good men who went to war, other people who've seen the darkness and chose to come back. You'll recognize each other without words, in the way you move, the way you assess rooms, the way you never fully relax, the way you keep your back to walls, the way you notice everything. You'll find your tribe in the survivors, in the ones who carry the same weight, and with them, you won't have to explain. You won't have to justify. You'll just exist, understood, accepted, home. But whether you find them or not, you keep walking. You keep choosing. Every day, every moment, every interaction. You choose who you're going to be with all this power, all this knowledge, all this capability. Some days you'll choose well. Some days you'll slip. Some days the monster will win a round. And that's human. That's real. That's the price of being both light and dark. You don't win every battle with yourself. You just win enough of them to stay on the right side of the line. Wherever that line is for you now, the devil is still watching, still taking notes. But now he's watching something different. He's watching to see if you can sustain this. If you can carry this duality long term. If you can be the good man who knows evil and chooses good anyway. Because that's rare. That's the story he doesn't see often. Most men go to war and stay there. They become the darkness fully. They let it consume them. They never come back. But you're trying to come back. You're fighting to hold onto something worth saving in yourself. And that fight is harder than any external war you've ever fought. So here's your final mission. Not to destroy anyone, not to prove anything, not to settle scores or balance scales. Your final mission is to integrate, to take everything you've learned, everything you've become, everything you're capable of, and alchemize it into wisdom, into strength that protects instead of destroys, into power that builds instead of tears down, into darkness that illuminates instead of obscures. You've been to hell. You've learned its language. You've mastered its tools. Now use them for something that matters. Not revenge, not destruction, but creation. Build something with these blood-stained hands. Protect something with this violent heart. Love something with this scarred soul. The devil took notes when a good man went to war, but he'll stop watching when that good man comes home and builds a life worth living with everything he learned in battle, because that's the ending darkness can't write. That's the story evil can't finish. That's the victory that can't be taken away. You survived. You transformed. You became dangerous. And then you chose to use that danger to protect instead of destroy. To build instead of tear down. To create instead of annihilate. That's the fourth part they never tell you. The part where you live. Not just survive, but actually live. with full knowledge of what you're capable of, with full memory of what you've done, with full awareness of the darkness inside you. And you choose life anyway. You choose building anyway. You choose love anyway. Not because it's easy, but because you've seen the alternative, and you're better than that. You're more than that. You're a good man who went to war, learned everything war had to teach, and then chose peace anyway, not the peace of ignorance, the peace of power restrained, the peace of a loaded gun that chooses not to fire, the peace of a storm that chooses to be still. That's true peace. That's earned peace. That's the peace that the devil himself respects, because he knows it could go either way at any moment, and you're choosing mercy. Welcome home, warrior. The war is over, but the battle to stay human has just begun, and that's a battle worth fighting. That's a war worth winning. Not against them, against the part of you that wants to stay in the darkness because it's familiar now, because it's comfortable, because it's easier than trying to be good in a world that punished your goodness. Fight that war, win that war, and prove that a good man can go to hell and come back still knowing who he is, still choosing what's right, still holding on to something worth saving. That's the ending worth writing. That's the story worth telling. That's the legacy worth leaving. The devil can keep his notes. You're writing a different book now. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double check responses.